everybody. It's Jim. It's Amadeus, and we have come to that wonderful time of the year that I love so well, and that's college basketball. First, the conference tournaments, and then a week from today, we'll know who's in the big dance, my friends. As a matter of fact, a week from today, we'll be dancing.
Yeah, it's an exciting week for sure. Obviously, some of the bigger schools and the bigger conferences are still finishing up the regular season. Got one more game either today or tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
left, but yeah, it's a lot of these
Okay.
smaller conference tournaments have already begun. We've gotten some wild upsets already, so it's a very exciting time. This is March, right? This is what we've been waiting for.
There you go. All right. So the Atlantic Sun tournament started. And number 2 seed is Stetson. They ended up almost blowing 10-point lead. Came back, did blow it. Came back and beat the 10 seed Jacksonville 88-87. So they're going to be in the title game, which will be held tonight. And so it will be Stetson hosting number 4 Austin P out of Nashville. Stetson, by the way, for those who do not know, is located in Orlando. It is a small school, but it has a pretty decent baseball team. They produced a pitcher by the name of Jason DeGrom. So, not for nothing. They have had some good teams in the past. The Hatters and Austin P. That is the Atlantic Sun. So you're going to have a chance to get to see, a really interesting, Atlantic Sun final. There's a kid to watch on Austin P. His name is Desi Jones. Desi's a 6'2", 6'3" shooting guard, and he puts up the points, my friends. He scored 34 points in the game against Northern Alabama. They won 77-71. That got him in the title game. So there you go. Keep looking, and we'll see. It's by the way, it's Austin Pay's first chance to get back to the NCAA tournament since they rejoined Division One. So they're trying to make their first dance since 2016. So good for them. We'll see how that plays out. Let's talk a little bit from a gaming aspect, from your situation, my friend. How do you is there? I guess the question is there value in these smaller tournaments, and do they generate some probably more winners than some of the bigger name tournament?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of value in these smaller tournaments. Austin P was actually a team I was on last night, -3.5. They've been
There you
a
go.
monster at home this season. So that's another thing you gotta look out with some of these tournaments, right? A majority are going to be played
Right,
on a neutral site, but some of these smaller conferences, like the Atlantic Sun, they play home advantage, and I believe the American East
right.
tournament is another one that plays home advantage style as well.
Yeah. Stetson will host them in the final tonight.
Yeah, and that's actually just
So
a bit of a surprise in itself because for so long,
mhm,
Eastern Kentucky was the team in that conference. They were leading the way. They finished the regular season with the best record. They did win the regular season championship in the conference, and sure enough, here we are with Stetson and Austin P, the two teams battling it out to get into the tournament. So it just goes to show you, the we're not even really into the conference tournament week yet, and we've already got the big upsets that are going to be affecting brackets here.
right. And we're gonna have some of the first people to punch their dance tickets over this weekend. You got the Ohio Valley Conference, which number 1 seed is Little Rock. They're going to be making their postseason debut. They haven't had a lot of luck in playing in these tournaments. So Little Rock's going to take on the number 4 seed Western Illinois, and if the Trojans get that win, then they will, make it to an opportunity to get into the tournament, and that's a big thing for them. Ohio Valley will the Ohio Valley, excuse me, uh, champion will be the first to get into the tournament. Then there's the Missouri Valley, the Big South, and the Atlantic Sun. So those are tournaments. I said tonight they don't. They're still going on tonight. Some of them, but the championship games for the Ohio Valley, the Missouri Valley, the Big South, and the Atlantic Sun all come up on either Saturday or Sunday. Okay, so there you go, depending upon who you want to see. Um, let's see the schedule for tonight: the Atlantic Sun semifinals, the Horizon League second round, Missouri Valley first round, Ohio Valley second round, Patriot League quarterfinal, Sun Belt second round, and then the first round of the WCC, which you and I had spoken about, you know, in the pre-show. And that's that tournament, the WCC, with the fact that Gonzaga beat St. Mary's probably firmly put them in the field, as I'm sure St. Mary's is in there. And then, what if a San Francisco sneaks in and wins that tournament? Then the WCC may be a three-bid league, which may mean that another conference, usually a smaller conference, doesn't have a two-bid. Maybe they're a one-bid league. So you got to watch out for those landmines that happen with regard to the upsets, because the upsets can really screw things up if you're a bubble team.
Yeah, definitely. We've, like I said, we've already seen some upsets. Like the Eastern Kentucky was upset by Jacksonville, number 10 seed very
Mhm.
early in the tournament. So that must have been a shock. Right now, speaking of the Missouri Valley tournament, we have a game that's live right now, 34-31 for Indiana State at halftime. And again,
Whoa.
they're facing a number 9 seed Missouri State, who's been putting
Mhm.
up a fight in this one. So maybe that would be another one. If Indiana State loses this game, that would shake some brackets to their core, because Indiana State
Oh,
has been a
yeah.
firm team all season.
That is one of those you don't wanna see that, if that burned, that you just the bridge has been burned. Um, the big conferences, and not just the big conferences, but, um, the ACC, for instance, and the SEC, all the rest of the big ones, they play next week. That's March 12th through the 16th. So we'll see them with the championship game on the 16th. The ACC is going to be in Washington D.C. playing at the Capital One Arena down the street here. American East, it's on the campus sites, as you aptly put it. The American, which we'll see our South Florida team and see how they do, are headed to Fort Worth. That'll be the 13th through the 17th. Then the Atlantic Sun is campus sites. We talked about that. The Atlantic 10, they're going to play their games at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. That's the 12th and 14th and 16th and 17th. Is the way they work it out. The Big 12 is in Kansas City, March 12th through the 16th. Big East is going to be where it always is, at Madison Square Garden, 13th through 16th. Big Sky is in Boise, um, and that's over this weekend. Big South is going to be in High Point, North Carolina. That's over this weekend. Big 10, Minneapolis. That's the 13th through the 17th. Big West is going to be in Henderson, Nevada, which is basically um, where Allie Burns lives, out there in Vegas. Okay. So that is the 13th through the 16th. The Colonials in DC, the 8th through the 12th. Conference USA is in Huntsville, Alabama, the 12th through the 16th. Horizon League is on campus sites, with the championship game being held in Indianapolis, and that is being played as we speak throughout the weekend as well. The Ivy League, they're going to play in New York City. That's going to be at the Garden, and that's the 16th and 17th. And here's your favorite: the MAC is going to be played in Atlantic City, New Jersey, the 12th through the 16th. The other MAC, the Mid American Conference, is going to be played in Cleveland, 14 through 16. The MEAC is in Norfolk, Virginia. That's going to be 13 through 16. Missouri Valley, we talked about them. They're in St. Louis. That's the tournament going on right now. The thing about the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, they play it in St. Louis pretty much every year, and it really is. They call it the Golden Arch tournament because the St. Louis Arch is there, so it's kind of fun. Mountain West is going to be played in Vegas. That's going to be on the 13th through the 16th. Northeast, which is campus sites, that's over this weekend. Ohio Valley over this weekend. In Evansville, Indiana, Vegas is hosting the Pac-12, which will be the 13th through the 16th. It'll be last. Campus sites for the Patriot League, that's over the weekend as well. SEC, it's Nashville this year, 13 through 16. And Southern Conference, it's in Nashville, North Carolina. Southland Conference is in Lake Charles. Summit is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Okay. March 8th through the 12th. Sun Belt in Pensacola. That'll end this weekend. The SWAC is in Birmingham. That's 13 through 16. WAC in Vegas, 13 through 16. And we'll do it one more time. Vegas hosts the WCC, which finishes this weekend. So there's where all your tournaments are being played. And, there's still some consequential regular season games going for seeding even. We got one tomorrow, which is pretty much one of the quintessential, games in college basketball from a standpoint of wanting to, have a rival. And that would be Duke and North Carolina tomorrow night, a Saturday night game. 2 teams in the top 25.
Yeah, that game's huge, specifically
Mhm.
well, mainly for both teams, but more so for Duke because obviously a bit of a revenge factor. They lost in North Carolina earlier this season, and
Mhm.
this game is North Carolina's got that 1 game lead. Duke wins this. That's it. It's the end of the season, and they get a share of the ACC regular season championship. Whereas if North Carolina wins it, then they're winning it all by themselves. So definitely some big implications in that game, not just the rivalry aspect.
For sure. Hey, CarCast, 49ers. What's your team there, bud? The 49ers is, I'm not sure if it's the professional 49ers or there's a few 49ers that are college 49ers, but we're always happy to have you. It's North Carolina and Duke, they go back. But to me, and this is going to sound because I'm older than dirt, it just doesn't have, without a Krzyzewski, without a Dean Smith, without a Roy Williams, the jerseys I get are still the same. But it's hard for me to get into a North Carolina Duke game. I don't. It's hard for me not to see Krzyzewski on, one of those sidelines or Roy Williams or, it's just hard. And that's just my problem, not anybody else's, but it doesn't mean that the rivalry is any less. It just means that the usual suspects aren't there.
Yeah, and normally, both these teams are in the top 10 right now, but usually, one of them is like one of the best in the
Sure.
country. You're not really getting that this year. It's just
Right.
kind of like, the mediocre 7 and 9. And even then, I think they're ranked that high more so on, name value
Right.
because
Recognition.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're dominating the ACC, but like how strong is the ACC this year? I want to see personally North Carolina and Duke play some more non-conference games to really get a feel
Mm-hmm.
for them because I think you're getting a false sense of security specifically with this North Carolina team. They are very good, but I don't think they match up well against some of the other best teams in the country right now, ranked higher than them. So yeah, this
Mm-hmm.
is definitely one that doesn't have the same shininess as it would have in or the same shine it would have in previous years.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and eh, right now you're going to have a couple things. There's still seeding for the conference tournament. And why is that important? Okay, well, here's the main reason it's important. If you go from, say, a 3 to a 5 or a 3 to a 7, depending upon, when you can slide by one game can cost you a lot with tiebreakers and everything else, you could end up playing an extra day. So you would have to literally win 4. You could be in a position where you have to win 4 games to make it to the NCAA tournament. There was a few years back, probably closer to 10, but a few years back, I remember Syracuse came from out of nowhere, didn't have a particularly good team that year, but they got hot at the tournament and they won they win all the way through and won the Big East tournament in New York, and away they were going. So seeding is important. You don't want to play any more games than you have to, because again, these kids are not NBA players. They're not used to playing back-to-back games. They're not used to playing 3 or 4 games over a 4-day period. So it's tough. The legs aren't there sometimes when you play that championship game.
Yeah, and that's a great point to bring up, especially in these bigger conferences where you're playing more days. Absolutely, you got to start taking the fatigue into account because, as you said, the players, you never really play a back-to-back except for these tournaments in college basketball. It's not something you're going to find in the regular season. So yeah, they're not used to it, and you can always make the argument as well. They're young, they'll have the legs and the energy. Well, it's different when, now you're on your 3rd straight. Now you're on your 4th straight. And as you keep going, the pressure's also building. You're not supposed to be there. Now you're in the finals, things like that, right? So it comes all together, and definitely a lot of different factors in these tournaments that you have to.
Well, the other thing too, when you brought this, and this is another point about what you just said, you're also playing under the most incredible pressure you played under all year. So you're not only playing back-to-back, you're not only tired, you're playing a team that is good, okay? Good enough to knock you out, okay? And it. So you got to get in there, you got to play. And it's and that's where seeding becomes really important. And I think other than Purdue, I don't really see anybody in that Big Ten that's going to give them any trouble. Do you?
No. I know we talked at the beginning of the season, like maybe the Big Ten was going to be a little more competitive this year.
Yeah.
Was wrong on that.
Looks like the football. It looks like the football group.
Yeah, once again, the conference is Purdue and everybody else. We got early sightings with Nebraska and Wisconsin looked really good, and then Northwestern had the upset win. But I don't know, down the stretch, these teams have kind of fumbled. They're still good teams, but the consistency factor is not there. And we've seen this Purdue team. You wronged them last year. They get up for the game. So it's one of those things where, I feel sorry for the 16 seed they're playing in the tournament because they're not losing again to the 16 seed this year. Now, when they run into maybe a stronger team down the line, different story. But I feel bad for whoever's playing Purdue in the conference tournament and the first round of the NCAA tournament because they're definitely on a rampage this season.
I reached out to a couple of buddies. Andy Katz, our friend of the show here. Andy has Ohio State on the bubble. I mean, that's how far they've slid. Okay, that Ohio State's on the bubble. He's got Florida on the bubble too, although he likes Florida for some reason. And I know as a also Gator fan, it's like, why are you basically defaming the Gators? I don't know. They may go on a run and win it all. I have no idea, but it'll be interesting. But the slide of the teams in the Big Ten all the way down, that's going to be tough. Michigan's having a bad year. Michigan State's having a bad year.
It's crazy to me that Ohio State's a bubble team at all, just because they're 8-11 in the conference, 18-12 overall. I can make a case for Florida, 21-9, 11-6 in the SEC.
Right.
Look at the top teams in the SEC right now; they're monsters.
Right.
I can
and
make
they only
a case
lost
for Florida.
it. Yeah, they only lost. I mean, they lost it to Quad 1 teams. So
yeah. So the Gators, I think that is a tournament team. Ohio State, though, just in the conference alone, look at these teams ahead of them with better conference. Right? Indiana, Minnesota, Michigan State, who you mentioned is not having a good year.
Yeah.
Iowa, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Nebraska, Illinois. Maybe Illinois is the one team that could
Yeah,
give Purdue trouble, but they just lost to them at home this past week. So
yeah. I don't think. I think if they could have given him trouble, they would have given him trouble.
yeah, like
Uh,
that's the thing, right? They
yeah.
if they win that game, maybe Illinois can take Purdue down in this tournament, but you can't even beat them at home. I mean, it's yeah,
Well, and
Purdue's the team to
Northwestern,
beat there.
Northwestern is a team that you're looking at and going, they're a nice little team, but they're not a great team. And it's weird. You go the SEC, all right. So the SEC is deep with what one could call pretty much the same teams. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They play the same way. They play the. I mean, you're watching a mirror image of teams. And
Yeah.
but I still think Tennessee's probably the best team in the SEC.
Yeah, definitely. They've obviously they've locked up the first, or
Hmm.
sorry, they locked up the regular season
Sure.
championship. So this game against Kentucky doesn't mean too much. That's why I'm a little weary going into it. Obviously, they're fighting for the number one seed with Arizona in the
Hmm.
dance. The tournament that matters to them.
Right.
But yeah, it's one of those things where do they want to keep winning and just they're also in a tough spot. This is their fourth straight game against ranked teams. They closed the
Hmm.
season with Alabama, South
Murderers Row.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very rough. But the SEC, it's a very strong conference,
Hmm.
and I would actually make the case that the SEC is stronger than the Big Ten because we just
Hmm.
went over the Big Ten.
Oh yeah.
Other than Purdue and Illinois, third place is Northwestern, Wisconsin,
Yeah.
and
Ohio
Nebraska,
State's
right?
way back there.
Yeah, Ohio State's in the bottom. They're actually almost near the bottom, which is why I'm
Right.
shocked they're on the bubble at all. Because look at the top six in the SEC. These are all teams that are 11 and
Hmm.
6 in the conference or better,
Right.
and teams with 10 losses or less overall during the season. Tennessee, South Carolina, Auburn, Kentucky, Alabama, Florida. Those are some very good teams, and I think
Yeah.
any of them could give those Big Ten teams a run for
Well,
their money.
and we talk about Tennessee playing for seeding, right? Wanting the one line
Yeah.
over Arizona. Okay. Kentucky. All right. Kentucky could that a win over Tennessee could give Kentucky a 4 seed. So you're looking it's a difference between a 4 and a 6.
Yeah, and Kentucky's
So
that weird kind of team where
yeah,
like they've gotten
you don't know
hot
what's
all of a
gonna happen.
sudden.
Yeah. They got hot against Florida. They got, they played some pretty decent basketball. So you got to watch that. Now, here's where things get, it's time to I may have to borrow your tin hat, your tinfoil hat. The NCAA receives, the money, the TV money from CBS and Warner. Well, now it's Warner Brothers. What is it? Warner Discovery Sports. I'll get it right here. Now, make
Should
it
mix of
tough.
three companies in there. Just
Right, just stir them around. So anyway, they get what's called a unit. A unit is, let's say, well, just to make it easy mathematically, it's $1 million. Okay. Every time you win, you get a better unit. Okay. So one win will get you $1 million. 2 wins get you $2 million. If you make it to the final, to Sweet 16, there you go. You get more. That can be to a Stetson University or to Illinois State or something like that. That can be to the conference a tremendous amount of money that will help them go. But what we see, because we see the Big Ten, the SEC and the others, the name conferences, the power conferences, they get 5. I mean, you're looking at the SEC is probably a 6-bid team league. I'm sorry. That means they're going to gobble up a lot of money for the conference. The Big Ten is going to be, screaming to get 4 teams in. They'll probably. I would not be surprised if they get 5 or 6. It's just the way it happens. Okay. And the other thing too is that these name teams that we talked about, Duke, North Carolina, and we're not just picking out Duke and North Carolina. It could be Arizona and others. That get in on their, not on the merits, but get in on the name. they're usually one and done. They don't have a good, tournament. Maybe get 2 wins. Um, again, the money is heavily leaning from the NCAA to the name brand conferences and to the name brand leagues. And it does mean that Cinderella, even in a 68 team field, doesn't have as big a chance as one would hope.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great point to make because obviously we see it all the time. So going back to the Big Ten and SEC example, I absolutely agree with you. The SEC is definitely a 6 bid league, and that I can get behind. I think there's 6 teams that deserve to be in the tournament. But I totally agree. The Big Ten is probably going to be a 5 or 6 bid league. And guess what? It's probably only a 2 bid league. Let's be real here. Purdue and Illinois are really the only deserving. Maybe if you want to throw a Wisconsin or a Northwestern there, fine, but nothing more than 3, in my opinion. The league is just not strong enough. But absolutely, as you said, we're probably going to see a few shoehorned in there that don't belong, and it's going to keep, it's going to keep a team that probably deserves to be there. Like we've talked a lot about how the A10 has, Dayton, Loyola, and Richmond, who are all very good teams.
Good teams.
And why I bring those up is because Dayton's in the top 25, yet they're third in the conference of those 3 teams. So that's my point. It's like you're gonna shoehorn an extra maybe 2 Big Ten teams in there, and guess what? Oh, now we're gonna leave out Loyola or Richmond because we got to somehow shoehorn Dayton in there too. They're a ranked team even though they don't have the results. And again, this is
Northwestern. We got to get Northwestern in because that's another Big Ten team.
And this is where it turns into a mess, right? And if they're going as deep as Ohio State, like that's crazy to me that Ohio State's even being considered. Because I mentioned to you, a few weeks ago, NCAA has got to have a rule at some point. Like I get, other conferences are stronger than others, but at some point you got to make it fair for everybody. If you have a losing record in your conference, you're not good enough to go to the tournament.
100%.
It's got to be something like bowl games here, right? The fact that we're considering Ohio State as a bubble team at 8-11, I don't care that they fired their coach, 2 weeks ago. Too little, too late. You should have played better. You came into the season ranked. You should have played better during the season.
Yeah, you should let Chip Kelly go in.
Yeah, and then that's where the hypocrisy comes in, right? So like we're going to consider an 8-11 Ohio State team because they fired their coach and they're getting hot now. Well, what about our South Florida, who's won 20 of their last 21 games? Well, they had those 4 losses at the beginning of the season under a new head coach with a brand new roster. So let's keep them out. Like this is where I was talking about the mental gymnastics. It becomes a mess and it's ridiculous.
We'll just stay with the American for just a minute. I would say you could take FAU, you could take Memphis, you could take South Florida, and you could probably take Charlotte. And I guarantee you that any one of those 4 teams would beat Northwestern or Ohio State.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt. Northwestern that could be a close game. Ohio State, though, absolutely. There's no way. Michigan State, like these are teams they just haven't performed this season, and that's what I'm afraid of. Michigan State. I'm gonna let me just double check where exactly they are because I know they're in the bottom half. I think.
Right.
Yeah. So like Michigan State's 7th. If we shoehorn Michigan State 7th in the Big Ten at 10-9
into the tournament,
then by default you have to put Iowa, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Nebraska because they're all ahead of them. And if we don't, then it's just hypocrisy at its finest. It makes no sense. So at some point, we got to think logically about it. I know we don't like to use logic in the rankings, but
God
sometimes
forbid,
you have to.
Well, and look, I'm not banging on the Big Ten. I mean, I've made money from the Big Ten for years. So, no, I'm not. But you have to look at each year, right? There just is not enough good quality teams there. The one X factor, there's two X factors to me. What the hell is going to come out of the Big 12? I mean, you got Houston, you got Iowa State, you got Baylor. Where do we go? Kansas State, I guess. Are they a 5 or 6? They're at least a 5 bid league. Maybe they're a 6 bid league.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting one to make too, because we talk about how the Big 12 is the strongest, so you'd think they'd
Hmm.
have to be considered even with a bit of watered down conference records because
Right.
you're playing stronger teams. That I understand.
Hmm.
Again, another conference that's probably going to get too many teams, even though they deserve a good amount, they probably
Right.
will get too many. And yeah, we're not going back to the Big Ten thing, but
Hmm.
nobody's ragging on the Big Ten.
Sure.
We came into the season optimistic. We thought the Big Ten was going to be a
Yeah.
competitive conference, but at the end of the day, I'm going to call it how it is. It's not a good conference. We came in optimistic, and it's once again it's Purdue and everybody else. Until the
Right.
conference gets stronger, don't blame us for calling it how it is.
No.
But yeah, going back to the Big 12 now, you're right.
Yeah.
Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, and Kansas. Absolutely, I think they deserve to
Hmm.
be in there, even though Kansas is 10-7.
Right.
We'll give them a name yet. But now, you have Texas Tech at 10-7. If we
Right.
put Kansas in there, I argue the case that you gotta put
You
Texas
got to
Tech.
give
They're
Texas back.
21 and
Sure.
9.
Right.
Versus 22-8 for Kansas. They're only one game behind them.
Hmm.
Then BYU just upset Kansas. They've gotten hot all of a sudden. So what do you do with BYU now? Right?
BYU's got to be in.
TCU's
They're ranked.
yeah. Yeah, and TCU's been a very inconsistent team. That's
Hmm.
one I think you could leave out. But would it
Right.
be shocking if we see TCU in there? No, it wouldn't shock me. So right there, that's 7 teams from the Big
Hmm.
12, and that would have to be the absolute most, because after that it's Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas State, and then you get into like Cincinnati, Central Florida. Oklahoma's not a tournament team.
No.
Texas is not a tournament team.
No.
Kansas State is not a tournament team. Any of those 3 make it in, that's an injustice to a smaller school.
Then you go to the Big East. I think they're a 4, maybe a 5 bid league. And frankly, to be honest, um, I hope, because I like Shaka Martin and Marquette. I hope that they get healthy, because they're banged up right now, and so you don't want to head to Madison Square Garden banged up and playing UConn. That's got that's got disaster written all over it. And
Yeah.
UConn, to me, I could be wrong. To me, they're the best team in the country.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And as far as the Big East goes, I would say 4 bids is fair, because
Okay,
obviously you have UConn, Creighton, Marquette, who have
right.
been monsters all year in the rankings. Not going to
Hmm.
deny them. And then Seton Hall, 12 and
Oh
7
yeah,
in the conference. They've had a very good year. That would be my 4th team at a lower seed. Because then next after Seton Hall, we got Providence, St. John's, and Villanova, all at 10 and 9 in the conference. Those aren't really good teams.
Rick Pitino is working. I mean, he is working overtime. He is on every radio and television show. I swear this morning I felt that when I opened the microwave, I was going to see Rick Pitino pop out and go, "Hey, we really do deserve to be in the tournament." And I will say this for Rick, and I've known Rick for, God, more years than I want to count. Um, there's nobody that that talks up their team better than Rick when it comes to getting them into something. Boy,
Yeah.
he's a good salesman when it comes to that. But he's going to have to be amazing salesman to get St. John's in that tournament.
Yeah, and once again, I want to point out, the hypocrisy here, because
Yeah.
those 3, so they're tied at 10 and 9 in the conference, right? So arguably, we're going to go
Mhm.
by what you did in your conference. You're all pretty even. Okay, so maybe we shoehorn, maybe we give them 5 bids. We got to get Villanova in there because name value, and
Sure.
oh hell, give them a 6 too. We need St. John's in there too, because obviously the Rick Pitino name value, but yeah. 7 might
Right.
be a stretch. Well, then what do you do to Providence, who had the better overall record? Did you tell them every game
Right.
you played this season didn't mean anything because you performed the same in the conference as those other 2 teams that made the tournament, and actually did better in the non-conference schedule, but you're going to get punished because you don't have the name value. You lost your head coach this year. You're in the first season, so there's just all these check marks that we can use
The
against
machinations.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the Pac-12, it's got to be a 2 bid league. It
It
cannot
has to.
be, unless, and I think you mentioned it. Now, no, you mentioned USC had a chance to win the whole thing. It was the the odds were pretty astounding, but they're better than USF.
Yeah. USC 7-12 in the Pac-12, 13-17 overall, second from last in the conference.
13-17 overall is not going to get you in the tournament. I
Well,
just can't
they're
see that.
plus 5,000 to make the Final Four. So, the odds makers actually think they have a better chance of winning the Pac-12 tournament. And, maybe because the Pac-12, obviously, we agree it is like a two-bid league.
Right.
But USC is just not good. They're not winning the Pac-12 tournament.
No.
If they have to run into Arizona eventually, they're not beating Arizona. You're not beating Washington State. But the point is, the odds makers think there's a better chance USC gets hot, wins the Pac-12 tournament, goes to the NCAA tournament, and makes the Final Four than South Florida, who's 15-1 now in the conference, and has just absolutely dominated it all year. But yet they have to win their conference tournament still just to be considered as a tournament team. They haven't secured their bid. They're plus 6,600 to make the Final Four as well. It's just it's amazing to me sometimes.
God love him. Mike Oresco, who is in his final weeks as the, or I guess it'd be the final couple of months, as the commissioner of the conference, is just like Rick Pitino. he sells the conference, and I feel very strongly that Rick will not. I'm sorry that Mike will not let the let the conference down in trying to shoehorn as many bids in there as he can possibly get in. But we're going to see. And I mean, we talked about the West Coast Conference. There's some quality teams out there. There's the Mountain West. Mountain West has some quality teams out there. And I'll tell you what, people, doubt Utah State at your own peril. They're a good basketball team, and there's some names you don't recognize that you see out there. That doesn't mean they're not good or good enough. Just like I said, just in the age of the portal, my friends, an instant team can come up. Now, I'll tell you a team who needs help this week, and that's New Mexico. If New Mexico wants to get into the tournament, they're going to have to play their butts off. They're going to have to win and get into and go deep into the Mountain West tournament. Otherwise, I don't think they're making it. And they're a good little team, and they're a good little story.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? The Mountain West, that's another one. What do you do with this league, Jim? Utah State 13-4 in the conference, Nevada 12-5, Boise State 12-5, UNLV 12-5, San Diego State 11-6, New Mexico 10-7, and even our Colorado State 9-8 there.
Yep.
That's more than half of the conference. That is 7 bids if you put all those teams in there. Now, I think Colorado State's probably going to get quick to get the axe. They really fell off in the conference play. And as you said, New Mexico needs to do a lot. But even if you cut the line there, San Diego State at 11-6 would be the next team, right? And obviously San Diego State has some name value. So if we're going by that, it's a 5-bid league for the Mountain West, which, I could make the case that they deserve it. I could also make the case that they don't deserve it. So to me, the Mountain West is a question mark. What's going to come out of there? And
I don't think they're going to get 5 bids. I think they'll get lucky if they get 4.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that San Diego State did a couple of years ago was focus the country on the Mountain West. I don't think anybody was paying attention, and now they are. And now they're seeing the quality of play out there. And so I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing not only for San Diego State, but it's also a good thing for the conference. And who knows? It may be the new Pac-12 by 2025. But
that's the thing. You get basketball value at least if you merge with the Mountain West.
Right. So you're getting it, and the Mountain West and the American, who are the two group of 5 conferences that are always there in football, seem always to be there in basketball as well. And so, I mean, let's not forget that it was Houston who won the American last year. So, they didn't have any trouble transitioning over to the number 1 conference in the country.
And that's the thing. They're in the Big 12 now, but the number
Yeah.
one team in the country came from the American Conference.
Right.
It is a good conference. So
yeah, just asked everybody over in the American, and I'm sorry, over in the Big 12, and then they're getting our Arizona next year coming
yeah,
over to their side. So it's not going to get any easier for them either. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. All right. What's going on soccer wise this weekend? Any fun stuff that we should be paying attention to?
yeah, always a ton of stuff. Obviously, big MLS card tomorrow.
Right.
Tons of Premier League and European soccer. I'll have plenty of plays up for the weekend. Later tonight I'll be posting my soccer plays for tomorrow. So yeah, tons to do on the pitch for sure.
All right. So let's make sure that people know this. They need to know that even though we won't be back until Monday, that you're going to be putting out content all weekend long. So come back and check out everything in the show box below of what Amadeus is doing. If you want to, sign up for Amadeus every day, but sign up in the show box below because he doesn't quit working on the weekend. He
Yeah.
keeps working and he keeps giving you content, which will be very useful to you. So by all means,
Yeah.
check it out. Tell him where to get you in the show box below there, bud.
Yeah, arguably Saturdays and Sundays are some of my largest cards because
Yeah.
during the week, with the sports available, maybe I'll
Hmm.
have a big like 6 play day or so. But on the weekends, I'm posting double digits across all
Hmm.
the sports. There's usually in total we got so anywhere from like
Hmm.
8 to 12 picks up just because I like to have 4 soccer, 4 basketball, little in everything. So absolutely, there's always money to be made, especially on the weekend. So make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. All of those links in the description below. Today, I only have 2 plays on the pitch, one in Serie A. I'm on a 12-2 run in Italy right now, so hot. And then I got one in La Liga. Those both actually, sorry, the Serie A one just started, so you can't grab that. But the La Liga one you can still get, starts in about 10 minutes. And then I have one college basketball and one NBA play for the night. So make sure you check that out.
Couple of quick headlines. Joey Votto isn't quite ready to retire. He says that I need the game to tell me when I'm done. Okay. Not quite sure, Joey, how that works, but but I guess it's like Field of Dreams, right? Yeah. If you build it, it will come. In this case, for Joey Votto, the stadium will go, Joey, it's time to retire. I guess that's where he's looking. All right, the Steelers are ready to release cornerback Patrick Peterson, who's an 8-time Pro Bowler, but has had some issues with some injuries. The U.S. men's national team midfielder Weston McKennie is set to return from injury for Juventus ahead of the national team game. And Zach Edley's record-setting college career by the numbers is been is being challenged. So there's some pretty interesting final headlines. One last one because it's Aaron Rodgers. The Jets are hopeful that Aaron Rodgers can play 2 to 4 more years. So that's he didn't play last year, so there you go. You
Well,
got
I
that
mean,
going.
if he's anything like Tom Brady, he can play another 9 years.
He's not. So there's we can stop that one right now. Don't have to worry about it. He's not. So there's that. A couple of other topics that we'll touch on real quick before we get out of here. True TV is going to become an all sports channel, and they'll use True TV for some overage stuff that they have on TNT and TBS. So keep a lookout for that. And also, Fox is going to do college football Friday nights starting this fall. It'll be a mashup. They'll have some Big Ten games. They'll have some Mountain West games, and they'll have some Big 12 games. So get ready to watch Friday night football on Fox coming up this fall. Okay. All right, folks, that's it. We will be back on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend. Be sure to check out all of Amadeus's work in the show box below. And if you get a little chance, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment. We're more than happy to answer them. Okay. Till then, on Monday, everybody, cash those checks or not cash those tickets. That's what we want to do. A Rye Cape line. So there we go, everybody. Take care.